of the desert, Sethos, is coming out soon. Is he worth your primos? No. My name is Juice, and today I aim to tell you every reason as to why Sethos sucks. Let's get into it. The main issue with Sethos is that this little man doesn't know what he wants to be. Let me explain. He's got a split kit. Think about how Farina also has a split kit between modes, but one of those kits is actually good and the other is irrelevant until C6. In Sethos' case, both of his kits suck. Kit 1 is based around him being an Electro charged attack DPS who uses energy draining as a mechanic. Kit 2 involves him using his burst, so naturally you will have no energy to drain for his charged attacks, but instead he will enhance his normals and become a normal attack DPS. However, it counts as charged attack damage. Cool? These two kits actively work against each other. The energy mechanic has the same problem as not being able to burst on Shiminawa's Yoimiya. Why is this bad, Juice? That's two playstyles in one. The problem is that both of his kits are weak, so it would have been far more beneficial for the burst to benefit his charged attack playstyle, or for the rest of his kit to benefit his normal attacks playstyle. Having one cohesive kit with adequate self-buffing would have been so much more efficient. The reason why it works for Farina is because she can carry her own weight with her short hair kit. It's amazing, doesn't require her long hair form to be altered in any way, as she was constructed in a way in which both kits can exist as their own thing. Some of you may think it's unfair that I'm comparing an Archon, or ex-Archon, whatever you want to say, to a measly 4-star side character. I'm not saying Sethos has to be as strong as Farina. My point is that Hoyo knows how to execute this kind of thing in a much more synergistic way. Sethos doesn't know what he wants to be. Sure, he's undeniably a DPS unit, but without the strength to back up one certain playstyle over the other, what was the point of even having two kits in the first place? His burst conflicting with literally everything else his kit tells you to do renders it utterly worthless. Not to mention that his kit doesn't do his main team archetype any favors. He's an EM scaling aggravate unit, yet he can't utilize the one being who makes aggro click. Fischl. This is because Sethos isn't going to do that many normals, especially if you're using his charged attack playstyle. And note that even though his normal attacks do count as charged attacks, he can still proc Fischl with them, so don't worry about that. But even so, his Electro application isn't even all that frequent, which is kind of lame. The main thing he isn't proccing is Fischl C6, which is a pretty strong selling point of the delusional girl. His max energy is 60 and his charged attack drains 20 energy, therefore his field time is as low as ever. Maybe you can squeeze in a 4th charged attack, but the individual impact of these hits is way too low to justify only doing 3 to 4. He needs to double that amount to even think about becoming remotely viable. Fischl and a double Electro core can at least still generate energy for him, because despite having a pretty bad burst, he still wants to build up some ER just so he can have some energy to work with. Yeah, this guy has flaws, not even his element can save him. You pretty much have to decide to play one kit over the other, and put up with the fact that he is the definition of disappointing mediocrity. I believe they wanted Sethos to feel almost like a mini Sino, but my problem is that they just didn't land the mark. I know I'm always pretty indecisive with my opinions on Sino, but come on, Sethos' kit is an insult to the guy. Plus, Sino's best team is Quick Bloom, not even Aggravate. At least with some 4-star characters, throwing money at them can improve their kit enough to the point where they're worth using, or you can take a decent 4-star and make them good, like Noelle, by pulling for an R1 Stone Thresher. Sadly with Sethos, buddy, there's not many ways you can turn him viable. First off, his Constellations, the saving grace of any 4-star character. But for Sethos, listen, it's not like they're terrible, but they aren't really groundbreaking and won't fix the main core issues of his terribly convoluted and split up kit. So, while this is a double-edged sword, in the sense that you can get the most out of him at C0, the most you're getting out of him is a single Pringle at the bottom of a really tall red Pringles can. Red specifically, other flavors suck. His weapons don't help much either. Yeah, a new event weapon is coming up which will be a viable free-to-play option on Sethos, that much is true. But once that event is gone, it's gone for good, and that weapon will never be coming back, at least not for the foreseeable future. And this is a problem because literally all of his other non-Battle Pass 4-star picks are awful. The reason people play 4-star DPSs is because they are budget options, which can often act as a cheaper alternative to a certain 5-star unit, or because they are impressive for their price. There are some outliers like Gaming who are genuinely just good characters, but most people simply make do when dealing with 4-star DPS characters. Nobody is willingly playing Hazo over Xiao unless they like Hazo a lot. Sorry Hazo mains, at least you know how to avoid tax fraud. So not having a ton of budget options kind of stings, since that's the main reason anybody would want to play him over literally any other Electro DPS. That takes me on to my next point. Sethos, I'm so sorry, buddy. You're coming out at an awful time. Electro DPSs are plentiful, and especially within the Aggravate archetype, we are all spoiled for choice. Standard banner unit Kaching, a fast electro applicator who's an amazing free-to-play friendly official A4 driver. Yai Miko, a solid damage upgrade to Kaching with a heavy-hitting burst and some very hypnotic battle lines. Right here, right now, come on now. Not to mention Chlorand, who is literally releasing in the same patch as him on the same banner as her, stealing her exact teammates with way more flaws. This is literally unfair competition, and I don't know why Hoyoverse felt like we needed another Aggravate Electro DPS. Things would have been different if, say, he was an Overload unit. Dare I say even an Electro-charged unit. That's a forgotten about reaction ever since Hyperbloom. Then he actually would have had a competent niche, and would have been best at something. Gimmicky, sure, but at least he would have had purpose, even if very little at that. And if you lose the 50-50 to Chlorand, well, you're lying if you're about to tell me you don't have a Raiden Shogun. Juice, I thought you don't really like C0 DPS Raiden. Yeah, I don't. But DPS Sethos is just infinitely worse? Literally even Aggravate Raiden is better at that stage. I hear the argument, Imaginarium Theater. Honestly man, just use Lisa at this stage. It's not like Sethos would be any better. She's free to play, way cheaper to build, and has a very cohesive kit. Fischl is a 4-star. Beto is also a 4-star, that is very solid, who could potentially come back with the rise of Imaginarium Theater. Plus, trial units. You don't even have to build Sethos for Imaginarium if he's quote-unquote required. The game just gives you one, and then you can test him out to your heart's content, then realize how bad he is and never play him again afterwards. He faces too much contest as a 4-star DPS in general. Gao Ming, even at C0, is a more cohesive and powerful unit than Sethos. Noelle is free, and while I do think she's strongest as a Farina driver, you can also play her as a DPS with Farina, Goro, and Yunjin, or even replace Farina with Bennett for an all 4-star team. You can clear within a minute and 15 seconds at worst. Well, depends on the chamber, but you get the idea. Or even later on, becoming flexible by being able to play double Hydro Noelle with Navia on the end. You know what's getting especially grim when I'm recommending Xingqiu National over Sethos. Man can vaporize his enemies with a snap of his fingers. Or even a Rosaria Kaya reverse melt team with Bennett and Shangling. Pretty strong if you know how to execute it, and 2 of the units in the team are freaking free. You get the idea. As a 4-star Electro DPS unit, Sethos' competition is far too high. And as a DPS in general, literally every other option under the damn Sumeru Desert Sun will be better. It's very unfortunate as to how poorly Sethos' kit was designed. I do genuinely think he's cool. Alas, it was not meant to be, and the people in Hoyoverse's boardrooms couldn't decide how they wanted to design his kit. I wouldn't have been against a budget 4-star Aggravate option for the people who lose their 50-50 to Chlorand and don't have Kaching. But his kit is so poor quality that I can't recommend him over just playing Lisa, or any other 4-star base team for that matter. So if you end up pulling a Sethos and aren't particularly attached to his character, I'd sit this one out and save your resources for the next, hopefully better, waifu or husbando. Hopefully this video was able to tell you why Sethos sucks and has problems in the current Genshin Impact meta. This has been Juice, signing out, and I hate to admit it, I really do, but I'd rather play freaking Ayato over Sethos.